Hey, I'm Alex Rackwell from Board Game Co, and today we're doing a to back or not to back. We're diving into a whole bunch of Kickstarters, game founds, backer kits, all of the usual things, going through them. But first, as usual, starting off with the Cult of the Now. Cult of the Now is a whole looking at games you can currently buy now, and over on Miniature Market, no, this is not sponsored by Miniature Market, you can find The Spill for $34.99. $34.99 for The Spill, coming to you from Smirk and Dagger Games, Smirk and Laughter Games, the company that does that. This was a Kickstarter game. This is the retail version of it that you can go ahead and check out for $34.99 if you're looking for a cooperative pandemic-esque style game that you can go ahead and check this out on Miniature Market. And with that, we're going to go ahead and dive into everything. There's a whole lot of stuff to cover today, and this is like a crazy busy week. We got a lot of things to go over. I did skip last week. That does contribute to it being a busier week than usual. And we also have a whole lot of things in the not funding category. We have a lot of stuff today in the not funding category. I don't know exactly why. Maybe just things are getting expensive, but we're going to dive into what we can, and well, let's go ahead and start this off. Starting off with one that is actually no longer available. This bad news of missing a week. Whenever I skip a week, if there's a button shy campaign in between, and those things only last like 8 days, we have Naturopolis. That unfortunately is done already, but for 4,998 backers, $137,000. This is the third in the series of Sprawlopolis, Archravels, and Naturopolis over here. You can check this one out. They might have a late pledge. I think, like, in general, button shy games haven't really generally done stuff like late pledges, but they may have started to recently. I don't know exactly. Some of the other campaigns have started to have a little more time and attention on them. We'll see. Either way, you can check this out, possibly, maybe, or just wait till the next Kickstarter. There will inevitably be another version where you can get your hands on this anyway, or you can pick it up at retail. But just in case you missed it, wanted to make sure you knew this thing existed. From there, we're going to dive into a few that are board game adjacent. Starting off with 2070, a graphic novel adventures game. 433 backers, $19,000 raised. This is from Van Ryder Games. This is over on Kickstarter. They've done a few of these graphic novel adventure games. Basically, choose your own adventure. So like a little bit board game, 90% choose your own adventure, 10% board game. And this is leaning into that with the 2070. They've had a few. They've had the Crusoe Crew. They've had they have a lot more than a few. But they have the Crusoe Crew, and they have Sherlock Holmes Baker Street. Those are two of the other games they've done in the series, and this is the next one in this line of board game / graphic novel adventure, and it's going to run you $35 for the game, or $60 if you want the 2070 plus another one, or $75 if you want the entire series of all three games. That'll give you the best deal on all three if you want all three of these. I actually have like a full book thing of the five of their earlier ones, but I haven't actually gone through them yet. But it's a choose your own adventure graphic novel / board game, and on that note, we actually have another one. We have Heart of Ice Deluxe Edition over on GameFound. This is a good time to remind you that I do work for GameFound. Take that into account as we go through this entire video, especially when we get up to the whole Tainted Grail part of things. But either way, I do work for GameFound for like a month and a half now, and been doing this series for around 3 minus years. Anyways, Heart of Ice Deluxe Edition over on GameFound, €13,000 raised, 235 backers. This is another of those choose your own adventure graphic novel games. Same basic idea. You know, you're going to go ahead and walk into a room and chuck a grenade and throw something out the door, and just choose your own adventure. Go to different pages, make your choices as you wander through this. This is going to run you over here for the core pledge over here. You have €49, and for the Stormweaver Standard Edition, you have €39. This is going to be their earlier one, the first game in the series of graphic novel adventures. So you can check out either or both of those, or get the double mission over here, 2 Heart of Ice Deluxe sets in case you want that instead of 2 different sets. But yeah, that's going to be Heart of Ice over on GameFound. Continuing in the category of things that are not quite board games but are adjacent to board games, we have FlipDie, the world's first dice you flip like a coin, raising $1,272,000 with 11,000 backers. This thing is doing incredibly well. It's their 4th campaign, but this one has taken off more so than any other campaigns have from them so far. And FlipDie is bringing you a die that flips like a die. You flip it like a coin, so it flips like a coin. You flip it like a coin, but because of the nature of the fact that you have this little ball rolling in and out of it and all that stuff, you actually get a result that is more like a die. So you can flip a coin which has 2 sides, but ultimately end up getting something that is more than 2 sides. Very intriguing, innovative concept. Not for me personally. Then again, I'm not looking for fancy, complicated dice solutions. To me, a 6-sided die is great. This is a very interesting, innovative concept, and apparently 11,000 people think so. And they have this whole fairness chart thing, although the thing that I find fascinating about the fairness chart, this is like they flip it a dozen times trying to, well, not a dozen times, they flip it hundreds of times to make sure that the answers are evenly distributed. The thing I'm curious about is not whether you get a statistically relevant result. The thing I'm far more curious about is, let's say you flip it from the same orientation and the same, meaning if I know where the ball starts and I flip it based on that, do I still get the same result? Meaning, in other words, is it possible to game the system based on where the die started, if that makes sense? Like, so that's what I'm curious about. I'm curious about not just if you did it randomly, but what would happen to that result if it were done with intent. I'm curious. That's all I'm saying. And anyways, moving on from there, well, before we get into that, we have $25 for a single one coin, $99 for the early bird merc set, or $119 or $182 or $260. It quickly goes up depending on what you want to get your hands on. But you can get a whole bunch of these for like a little over $100 for all of these coins over here. Moving on to the not funding category, we have a whole lot in the not funding category. We have like 7 games in the not funding category today. A lot of things that are close but not quite over the line. Many of these will make it over the line. It's just the nature of the fact that we have a lot of games out there on Kickstarter, on crowdfunding in general, and we also, more importantly, we have a lot of games that are getting more and more expensive. Those starting pledges for a lot of games, even the ones that are funding, feel like they're almost twice the price of a retail game. And that does mean that a lot of people are looking at Kickstarter, crowdfunding, GameFound, BackKit, all that stuff, and kind of some of them are just saying, you know what? Cult of the now for today. In any case, starting off the bat with Frozen Frontier, 300 backers, $30,000 out of a $40,000 goal. This likely will fund. This coming from Cosmodrome Games, who have put out Aquatica, which is one of my favorite games of all time. Frozen Frontier is leaning into a heavier category of game, running 2 to 3 hours for the game. This is going to be giving you a lot of stuff to puzzle through as you figure out where to build your buildings, when to cooperate with other players, how to move around the board. It's a very tight engine. I cover this one, you can check it out on my channel, but it's a very tight game of resource optimization, and the resource system is fascinating in this game, of trying to balance different things, of figuring out where to build and where to take advantage of your opponent's buildings. Lots of stuff going on, but ultimately very, very crunchy, heavy Euro game going on over here. Pledges are going to run you $85 for the base game. Again, that's what I'm talking about with the expensive stuff going on here, and not just this game, lots of games, and $125 for the deluxe edition of this game. That is Frozen Frontier from Cosmodrome Games. Then over there we have Mind Your Business, 254 backers, $11,000 raised. Mind Your Business is a game of trying to figure out how to maneuver these tiles as you line up your card, gather the most resources over there, making sure you don't ultimately have your little gnome eaten or destroyed or killed or all that stuff, trying to get the most resources better and faster than the other players. This is going to run you either $38 for the Journeyman or $80 for the Gnomified Miner, which will give you both copies as well as a Gnomified piece of art of yourself. So a few options over here. They have 2 different core sets, which allow you to either play at 1 to 2 player or all the way up 1 to 4 player if you have both core sets over there. And that's Mind Your Business. Then we have over here Rone Invasion, 453 backers, to $40,000 raised. Rone Invasion continues the line, and again, this is another one that likely will fund. Mind Your Business also likely will fund. Just looking at what are we up to over here. $11,000 out of $15,000 with 17 days, likely will fund. Rone Invasion likely will fund, but this is a cooperative, solo, and competitive game, continuing the Rone series of games. The Rone series of games has been out for quite some time, and this one's tightening the whole engine, giving you a bit of a, first of all, it gives you co-op play and solo play, in addition to the competitive head-to-head, but it gives you deck construction and dice construction at the same time. So not only deck construction, deck building, meaning instead of deck construction, where you might have in a prior Rone games, you have deck building during the game, as well as dice construction. This game literally comes with screwdrivers so you can properly construct your dice, not like put them together, but you have these little rivet kind of pieces that you're going to be screwing in and out as you build the dice towards your deck and as much as possible, which again, it looks like a cool concept. Very intrigued by it. I don't know if handing out screwdrivers along with your game is the best messaging overall, but don't get me wrong, looks cool. The art looks cool, game looks cool. I like dice building, I like dice crafting. I am a little nervous about that screwdriver concept over there. The game's going to run you anywhere from, well, €66 for the Recruiter Pledge. Is that the cheapest one? Yeah, €66 for the Recruiter Pledge, all the way up to 79, then €115, and then 140 for the all-in pledge for everything. Lots of options over here. Like I said already, there are several ways to dive into the game, from solo to competitive to cooperative. Lots of content out there you can check out as well for more like full. I believe there's a full gameplay a full playthrough over here in Rone Invasion solo playthrough. You can check that out as well. But yeah, lots of content around the game. This is Rone Invasion. Then moving on, again, lots of not funding stuff over here. We have We're Sinking, 516 backers, $34,000 raised. Another one that almost certainly will fund with 21 days to go. And this is an adorable game. Highly recommend watching the video. The We're Sinking video is great to go through. Very, very just well done video and really pulls you in. This is a semi-cooperative experience of either trying to figure out the ship is going down and you want to be the lightest person remaining and make sure you get out alive, or alternatively, you're able to bail out all the water, take down the sea monster, and then basically you're trying to figure out who can can walk away with the most treasure. So either way, one way or another, there's going to be a winner, but the question is how the game results in a win. Is it because the ship survived or because it sank? That will determine how you want to try to proceed. So again, that semi-co-op aspect where you kind of want to be balancing and working together, but unfortunately working together is not necessarily always the best thing, so you have to try to figure out which direction the game is going before you figure out where to commit your energy towards being the lightest or having the most treasure. Different ways to focus on how to try to win the game. That is basically what's going on in We're Sinking. So again, the game is literally sinking as you go through it. I don't know if you can see it over here, but that boat is literally going to be falling apart piece by piece while you add little wreckage bits onto the board that you can further try to salvage. Combine that with some character abilities, some delightful art, lots of charm, and that is We're Sinking. $49 for the basic pledge level and $65 for the all-in over there. Price point on this one is not bad. Overall, the game looks delightful. The game looks very charming and cutesy. The video is well done. The gameplay overall is well done. The biggest strike against it is going to be that semi-co-op aspect. Semi-co-op is definitely a tough one. It's not the only semi-co-op we're going to see today as well as that. It's always harder to pitch semi-co-op, and this game does have semi-cooperative elements. Not full semi-co-op, because it's not really that you win separately or lose together, but rather how you work together or not will define the win conditions. So it's like a little bit of a step away from semi-co-op while still having semi-co-op elements. Moving on. The Turczi Jr. promo pack by David Turczi over on GameFound. This is currently at 14,000 euro raised out of 26,000 euro. This is in preparation for, or congratulations that David Turczi's child is about to be born, and he has a promo pack for like 7 of his games, something like that. By the way, highly recommend going through the FAQ on this one. The FAQ on this is delightful. First of all, the promos we have are Takenu, Perseverance, Imperium, Voidfall, Vengeance Roll and Fight, Want to See You, Venice, and Tricarion. So it looks like 8, not 7. 8 promo cards and packs and mini expansions for games, and I highly recommend checking out the FAQ. Very interesting to read through this one. Anything from, can I get the promo for just that one game? No. Well, are you sure I can't get the promo for just one game? Still no. Are you really sure you can't get the promo for just that one game? Actually, why didn't you ask the first time? Totally nope, you still cannot do that. That's in addition to a whole bunch of other questions. Highly recommend you go through this. But it's going to run you roughly 20 euro for the pack. And he does say, by the way, while you're at it, if you like one of his games, there's a decent chance you'll like half of these at least, so you may as well try to track those games down once you have the promos for them. Yeah, either way, this is David Turczi promo pack, not yet funded. This one's a little harder to say, 20 days to left, a little over half funded. That one is a little closer, so we'll have to see. But David Turczi does have a large following, done a ton of designs, a ton of solo designs, so this may well be one that goes over that finish line. Ultimately, we'll see. Moving on to Biergarten. Biergarten 2nd Edition over on GameFound. This is one that unfortunately likely will not fund, just being at $2,600 out of a $7,500 goal. It's a little over 35% funded, a little over that third funded, which is not bad, but overall 20 days still left to go. Could go either way on this one. This is a reprinting of the original Biergarten. The page itself does not have a ton of information on the game, but this is a reprint and updated art in this tiling experience. But that's it. That's Biergarten. It's going to run you roughly, let's see the backer rewards over here. It's going to run you roughly $25 for the game, so cheap all things considered, but one that still is not really picking up that audience, at least not yet. Moving on to 9/11 Car Operator board game. Again, we're charging through these. A lot of not funding options over here. 9/11 the board game over here is 658 backers, $24,000 raised out of 29,000. Again, likely this one will probably cross the finish line. This one, another solid video. Highly recommend watching the video. It'll give you a good idea of what's going on in the game. But overall, you're basically running 911 calls, trying to route various people through the game, trying to route people through the board. And this one is another semi-co-op game where you're working together with the other players to try to ensure things are taken care of as much as possible, but ultimately winning on your own. Again, semi-co-op is just a tough terminology. I found that I like the premise of many semi-co-op games, but ultimately semi-co-op does not work for me at the end of the day. We have $25 for the infection-free zone pre-alpha access, but over here we have $36 for the 9/11 board game and $136 for the board game plus all digital content. A few options here. Again, check out the video. It does look good. It's really, for me, the semi-co-op element is just the part that has me a little bit not certain on this one. And then lastly in the not funding category, and this is a big one, we have Heroscape Age of Annihilation Vanguard Edition, $250, 2,100 backers, 30 out of 8,000 that they want over here, 38 days to go. Again, that one's just going to be hard. This is over on Hasbro Pulse, which means it is a little harder to predict this one, just because Kickstarter, GameFound Back Kit, they all have a certain tempo to them as far as how much funding you get in the first 2 days, across the whole campaign, in the last 2 days. Hasbro Pulse, I don't have a good guideline of how that tempo is, so maybe they'll be able to see those numbers that they want. But $250 for a reprinted version of Heroscape. This is, they're rediving back into Heroscape, but I think they miscalled how many people are actually currently interested, especially when you put a $250 price tag on the experience as your access point. I think that just makes it a harder sell. I mean, if you look at the prices of some of the old Heroscape stuff, It's not the craziest price, all things considered, especially when you're getting new content, but it still is expensive. And again, 2,000 backers is plenty, but it's not 8,000. If 8,000 is their target number, I'm curious to see what happens at the end of 30 days, so 38 days. So this is another one that goes into the not funding category, at least for now, although I'm sure I'll be keeping an eye on it as this campaign continues. And with that, I think we're finally done with all the things, which means it's finally time to go ahead and dive into the actually funded category, starting off with Ghost Love Candy 2, Roll and Fright print and play. This is going to be the first of 2 print and play experiences. We've been having more and more of these recently, and we're going to continue diving into them because I do like showing them off because they're cheap and easy to dive into if you're interested. With 819 backers, $2,500 raised, Ghost Love Candy 2 Roll and Write is from Chad Elkins from 20th Century Games. This is going to be a set, more specifically, of 3 different Roll and Write games for $3. That's the low price of $1 per game, giving you 3 different games with the same general art style and cutesiness, but different experiences, different entry points as far as the genre over here. And over here we have from Matt Riddle, Motor City Gameworks. Roll and Fright is such a great series of roll and write, something I know a little about. Each game in the pack provides such a thematic, fun holiday experience, providing different levels of gaming for any situation or group. This is from Matt Riddle from Motor City Gameworks, who have done Three Sisters and Motor City and Fleet the Dice game. So a lot of roll and write experience over here. But this gives you 3 different roll and writes. Again, we have Boogaloo, which seems to be the main early access or whatever it is as you check things off over there. We have Haunt the Block as you're moving along the block, giving you a kind of roll and write experience. And then we have Tricky Treats, where you're either scaring or entertaining the children. You have to balance what goes where as you go through the experience. Again, 3 different roll and writes, 3 different, well, they're all $1 effectively, $3 for all of them, but giving you different access points as far as how complex the experiences are. From there, we have Terraforming Mars, the dice game. 7,600 backers, $320,000 raised, 4 days to go. This is one that I actually have very little interest in, although I probably should still back it because, I mean, it's Terraforming Mars. But this is Terraforming Mars, the dice game, which, if you look at the game, if you go through the experience, if you check out the gameplays and all that stuff, this is effectively a dice tableau builder. You're building up your dice pool as you go through the game, trying to build better and better cards that give you more and more dice to be able to roll and chuck and use them towards more card experiences as you roll and assign the resources as you can. So it's a little bit of the DNA of Terraforming Mars, but seems to be very, very different in the actual execution. Then again, if you remember, I was fairly harsh on Ares Expedition, Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition, because it wasn't Terraforming Mars, and once I kind of got over that, I really enjoyed the experience. It's still not Terraforming Mars for me. So I'm curious about Terraforming Mars, the dice game. Curious to see how this one goes. The price point is certainly tempting. $35 for the price point on this game just makes it very, very tempting, especially when it comes with all those the various promos it's going to come with as a typical. This is a typical genre for a Terraforming Mars game. You have slow release of corporations and promo packs and all these things that will slowly be teased across the course of the campaign, and then eventually be available over on Board Game Geek Marketplace or whatever it is, the Board Game Geek store, not marketplace. So yeah, all the stuff here you will have access to, but if you want to get this stuff, all this stuff earlier and cheaper, I don't know if they actually said earlier, they've had tricky history with that over there, but they have these promos that will be unlocked. If you want quicker, earlier access, stop saying earlier, Alex. If you want quicker access with the extras over there, this is your opportunity to get your hands in it, and especially if you want things like the Near-Free and game boards, those tend to be a little harder to get your hands on. So overall, price point's pretty decent, although not guaranteeing it won't be cheaper down the road. It very much well may be cheaper. Some of the Terraforming Mars stuff have been cheaper down the road, but especially when you count the promo packs as well, this one kind of falls in the category. If you're interested in Terraforming Mars, no matter what, go ahead and get your hands in it. If you kind of want to be convinced, wait around, see how it goes. You're not in a rush, and there will be other options to get your hands on this one way or the other. That is Terraforming Mars, the dice game. 7,600 backers, $320,000 raised. More Terraforming Mars, but kind of only adjacent, at least seemingly. Moving on from there, we have Temple of Horrors 2 by Chicks. I'm probably horribly mispronouncing that, but 41,000 euro raised. 478 backers. Highly recommend watching the video on this one as well. This is another good one to watch the video on. It'll give you a good idea of what if you're tempted by this game. Although one thing the video does not do is it does not give you a good idea of how combat is resolved, and I recommend checking that out because it might turn you off, or it might pull you in more. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure myself. It's a little bit of both. But this is a kind of a dungeon crawling, Carcassonne-ish game, which you're pulling out tiles, going through the dungeon, dealing with the various enemies. There are miniatures or standee versions, depending on what you get. But also, for the combat, it has a flicking cube mechanism. We have this little pool over here, where you're flicking cubes both for attacks as well as dodging, trying to manage all that, and utilizing character abilities to manipulate where the things go after you shoot them. So, interesting concept is this little thing, which, again, pro and a con. It seems different than most of the games I'm playing, thing on the one hand, but also could very well be broken, especially if you get good at the system and lock it down, especially across multiple games and combat. I could see this being a system that is fun at first and becomes less rewarding over time. Could see, not commenting, just theorizing over this one. But this is going to be choosing how to build a dungeon, move and explore, choose to and place a tile, unlock special rooms. Larger rooms are going to be giving you more rewards over here, but you also have to be mindful of, because more rooms again and again in a row going to be harder and harder monsters. And then you can be mindful of your own little monster track as you figure out what to flick, how to flick, and how to manipulate the things you're flicking to be able to get the dodge results, the attack results you want as you go through the experience. It's going to come with standees for the basic version of the game, and then if you scroll down to the various reward options, we have €42 for the base game. We have Time Portal for official promo adventure for €10, but then when you scroll up to €105 for another €60, doubling and more on the price of the game, you'll get the miniature pack, and then for another €50, you're going to get all the walls as well, which is something you'll see in the video. And those ones, again, very torn on that one. That could be something that's very, very solid as a quality of life improvement to make everything much more immersive, or it could just be more work and tedious setup and maintenance as you're trying to play through the game. So I guess I'd say the game does look interesting to me overall, but figure out which type of thing looks interesting to you overall, because there's different stuff here with different reasons to jump on any number of different categories of options. Moving on, we have Dice and Divination, a roll and write compendium, 183 backers, $1,400 raised. This is a set of 5 roll and writes for $8. There's 5 roll and writes for $8. Ignore that $7. I'm pretty sure they changed it, and the actual pledge prices are $8 over here. But this is a roll and write compendium, 5 different roll and writes, but themed around the this kind of a genre of divination, of tea reading, astrology, bone casting, palm reading. Very intriguing. Don't know how to play any of them, but it looks intriguing, and at the very least, it is definitely different than your usual fare. So overall, take a look at this one if you're interested in more print-to-play roll and writes. This is Dice and Divination, a roll and write compendium. Then we have Tainted Grail, Kings of Rune by Awakened Realms. Tainted Grail, Kings of Rune with 15,000 backers, $3 million raised. Well, technically $2,800,000, $2,828,000 raised, but shortly to cross 3 million. May well cross 4 million. Curious to see just how far this one pushes it. Again, reminder, I work for GameFound as we go through this campaign. Worth noting that. But overall, this is Tainted Grail, Kings of Rune. This is the newest version of Tainted Grail, with the new jump into this campaign over here, giving you both new content as well as updated older content, as well as all these various pledge levels for any number of different things. Testimonials for this game from people who've played both the experiences are very, very solid, talking about just how much this has improved, giving you the Tainted Grail experience you know and love, or don't know and might love, but also cleaning up various elements of grind and experience so that this becomes just a straight out better game. That seems to be the general consensus from people who have played Tainted Grail and played this game. Meaning if you've played Tainted Grail and it wasn't for you, then it depends on the reason it wasn't for you. If it was grind based, this might be for you. If it's because you don't like the combat system, this is going to have the same combat system. So understand that this is not making Tainted Grail a different game. It is improving upon elements that they had critiques, and just taking it to the next level, as well as backwards compatibility different things, having update packs to a certain degree. So there's more content for both the original Tainted Grail as well as the new Tainted Grail, Kings of Rune. Scrolling through over here, there's lots of updates to go through. There's things about the upgrade packs, there's things about the past adventures of Tainted Grail, all updated. There's things about GameFound. If it's your first time on GameFound, you can check that out, or learn about Kings of Rune. There's a ton of content across this page, but we're going to scroll down to start going through the various, well, first let's go through the pledge levels over here. We have $209 for the Sundrop pledge for Kings of Rune, for the Weird Encounters, and for Tainted Grail over here. We have the $99 core pledge over here, giving you, again, the stretch goals and Kings of Rune. Then we have Fall of Avalon core box, giving you the original game if you want that, as well as the Knight of Avalon pledge for $299, and the Warlord of Avalon pledge, Sundrops, for $579. And yes, you can absolutely spend more than $579 if you want to get your hands on absolutely everything. There's a lot of stuff that falls under the category of everything when we're talking about Tainted Grail over here. Anything from Neom to Echoes of the Past to the what's it called, the Monsters of Avalon, to the Riders of Avalon, the Mounted Heroes, to metal dials and coins for the menhirs. There's all these different options here that you can easily spend upwards of, I'd guess, $1,000 if you want all the stuff, but you certainly don't need all the stuff. This is a good time to talk about just how much content there is and how much content you actually go through in your campaign games. Tainted Grail is the kind of game that has so much stuff in it, so much content, that even a single campaign is going to be plenty for most people. You might not be most people, but you also might be most people, so look into yourself and your own campaign history before you decide what you want to get your hands on, because you can otherwise easily spend upwards of $1,000 on this game. There's just so much stuff. Miniatures, more miniatures, characters, even all the characters. I mean, to dive into with a new character, if you're playing this game as a 2-character game, you don't need 15 extra characters between expansions and extra optional buys, because you're never going to go through that much content. There's so much stuff over here. But as we dive through there, you can see a bunch of the characters. You are always prepared. The Broken Trails of Avalon over here, and just more. Let's see if we can keep scrolling. The Dungeons of Amazon. Your deeds are written. We have this unlockable little secret filters card they unlock. They improved this one from this into some sort of miniature in one of the stretch goals. They have, storage aspects. Let's see if we can keep scrolling through this to find the actual things over here. Here we go. Day 1, we have the Echoes of Ruin expansion already starting to be built over here. We have the Encounters variety pack, giving you encounters that will go into the game, as well as introducing encounters that, based on how encounters will go, will introduce new encounters into the deck. We have the character weird forms, Elgin the Candlemaster. This is one of the core game characters who's in his weird form over here that will overlay his board, changing stats up over there. We have the new companion, the Candle Golem. We have over here the Items variety pack, giving you more items, the Places for Beyond expansion, a bunch of expansion cards, new location cards, overlaying all that. We have the Adventurer's Notebook. We have, these are all just extra stretch goals and add-ons and all these things that are being unlocked. We have the trackers for combat and diplomacy, making your combat and diplomacy easier to track, both a combat tracker for combat and little sidecar trackers for diplomacy to track where you're up over there. We have a new companion, Isolate the Gold Mask. Again, a new companion. Not that you need it because you have plenty of content, but if you want it. We have more random events. We have the Tainted Grail, all the voice content over here. Voice app voiceover examples. You can check this out, giving you some example content from the first experience over there, from the first adventure. We have more characters over there as far as their weird forms. We have the Plastic Secret Review Lens, giving you this is going to be for certain aspects of the journal, as once you unlock it, you have the opportunity to look at certain places, but this gives you a better, cooler piece. We have the standee pack for those who've been asking for that, and that's kind of where we tap out, in addition to just having tons of content around the game. So just a lot of things going on here, an absolute lot of things, from update packs to characters to any number of different things. There's a ton going on in this campaign. You don't need everything, but you might want to get your hands on some stuff, but that's up to you to look into the game itself. The core game concept is an exploratory game. You're going to be wandering around the map, engaging locations, trying to spend your action resources, trying not to die. That's always a good thing in games. As you figure out the combat and diplomacy puzzles as you try to navigate through it all, it is ultimately a story-driven game with a lot of choose-your-own-adventure elements to it. Not the first or the last choose-your-own-adventure you're seeing today, but that is Tainted Grail, Kings of Ruin. Moving on to Elevenses, The Guilty Party, a game of delicious card game for 1 to 5 players, of murderers and cards, and playing cards to be able to manipulate and cast your suspicion cues around the table as you try to figure out who the murderer is, while also trying to balance your own points in the experience. It's going to run you $15 for the core game, or $55 for the T-Trolley pledge for absolutely everything in the Elevenses series, giving you all the tons of stuff. There's Elevenses for 1, Elevenses for 2, the trolley boxes, sugar cubes, lots of content for Elevenses if you are a fan of the experience, and that plus shipping as well for all of those. Overall, this is one that's just less likely to hold its value. In general, just a small price point of $15 for the content you're getting. Once you factor in shipping, just in general does make this one a harder one to hold its value just because of price point alone. Moving on to Draft and Write Records. This is coming to you from Inside Up Games. Draft and Write Records, 763 backers, $31,000 raised. This is a topping the chart roll and write game, giving you strong degrees of, and this is not a print and play to be clear, this is a printed copy of the game, but it's giving you strong Ganshon Clever cascading bonuses vibes to it. This is one I had a chance to cover and play a bunch. Overall, really enjoyed this one. If you like Ganshon Clever, if you like that kind of experience, I think this is giving you more of that. This is a solid game with just a ton of cascading bonuses and lots of options and pathways to play through it. So if you like those style, if you like the Motor City or all that different types of Fleet the Dice game, Three Sisters, if you like those experiences, it's giving you a lot of it, although at 2 drastically different price points. You see at $27, plus shipping and handling and all that stuff, $27 is going to give you the core Draft and Write Records experience, giving you the core game, all the extras you can get over here, some extra expansion packs you can buy in to get both expansion packs, or you can jump straight up to $73 where you're paying for a whole lot more, and you might feel like you're getting your money's worth of that, but there is a whole lot more to be paid over there. There's a bunch of, you're going to be getting yourself 6 neoprene masks with different designs, as well as all the extras, as well as both expansions without having to pay for the second one. But again, it's a big jump in price. You're going from $27 to $73. Yes, you're getting some extra mats, but make sure you want that, because you are tripling your price. Not really entirely true. You're doubling 2.5 times in your price if you go that route. That is basically what's going on with Draft and Write Records. Moving on. Oh, as far as sorry, I apologize. As far as will it hold its value, will it not? Overall, hard to say in this one. This one doesn't have a huge audience. $27 is not a bad price point, but once you factor in shipping and all that, you're paying more around $35. You have to weigh that up against retail options down the road. I think this one is not the best back, but not the worst back either. Once you go to the higher price points, Neophyte stuff doesn't do as well as far as holding its value, so I think that's more of a gamble. But the $27 is not the worst. You might be able to get it cheaper at retail, but by a few bucks. Moving on to Lunar Rush. Lunar Rush is a simultaneous play Euro-style board game for 1 to 4 players. Lunar Rush is giving you 306 backers, $21,000 raised, 11 days to go. This is coming to you from Dead Alive Games, and Lunar Rush is a game which you're going to be trying to bid to manage your pipeline from Earth to the Moon as you figure out how fast your stuff's going to get up and down there, because the longer it takes, the more time you're burning through, so you have to figure out when it's worth paying for that premium service. Once everything's up at the Moon, you're also going to be going ahead and building out your own engine on the Moon. This is a big part of the game. You're building out your own internal engine, trying to make sure yours is better and more efficient than the other players before sending your resources back down to Earth to be sold. It's a bit of a puzzle as far as both an optimization puzzle on the Moon, as well as a puzzle as far as when it's worth bidding to get the premium access that you need. There's also additional ton of modules in the game to mix up the experience in a ton of different ways, but that is basically Lunar Rush over here. And for pledge levels, we have $39 for the Moon-based pledge and $59 for the Gold module pledge, $89 for the Moon Wonders pledge. So again, a bunch of options. Then we have the Moon and Back pledge and all those things over there. But a bunch of options over here as far as the upgraded components and all that stuff. Basic idea as usual, if you're looking for a retail edition, I would hold off on this one. I'd get this at retail instead. We can get your hands on cheaper. But once you're getting that deluxe pledge over there, you're getting enough extras, especially all the harder to track down potential expansions and all those things, that at that point it might be worth getting your hands on it. Although again, with only 306 backers, this is one that even at that price point, I think it's less likely to hold its value, but it's more a question of just the convenience aspect, because this might be one that's harder to track down if you only have 306 people backing the game. That is Lunar Rush Records, not Rush Records, but that's Draft and Write Records, Lunar Rush, and that's a game that I think overall is less likely to hold its value, but you may still be interested in this one. Solid game, really enjoyed this one. Moving on, we have Leaf. Leaf from Tim Eisner Games, 1,678 backers, $93,000 raised, 12 days to go. Leaf is embodying the spirit of Leafs as you basically try to match up the Leafs and taking the actions depending on the Leafs that you match up. This is a fascinating puzzle as you try to figure out how to lay down these Leafs, and they all manage to connect in interesting and brilliant ways as you figure out what touches what and which connection point. It all works very well, but each Leaf is doing a different thing, from letting you gather more Leaf cards, from moving up the trunk over here, from trying to change the seasons. There's going to be a bunch of options depending on the Leafs that you gather and how you utilize them. This is coming to you from Tim Eisner from Weird City Games. Tim Eisner's done Wonderland's War and Tidal Blades and a whole bunch of games, as well as a bunch of games under his own umbrella of Weird City Games. He did March of the Ants and Canopy and this game. Bunch of games over there as far as the options. And then over here we have $40 for the Leaf Standard Edition and $65 for the Leaf Deluxe Edition before you get into doubling pledges, which you can do. You can double both the regular Standard Edition as well as you can double the Deluxe Edition over there. Both options over there, saving you primarily on shipping. But over here you have, as far as what you're getting for the Deluxe Edition, you're getting basically deluxified components. If I can scroll down and find them over here, $65, you're going to be getting a ton of upgraded wooden components for all the stuff in the game, just making the overall game more premium. And speaking of which, as far as the should you back it, should you not, if you are getting this game, I would avoid getting the $40 pledge. If you're getting the $40 pledge, I was just getting it at retail. Instead, I would go ahead and get the $65 pledge. It is a bit more, but you're getting upgraded components along the way, and those are more likely to hold their value overall. This is a game that clearly has some form of audience, and while I'm not confident that the $65 holds its value, I certainly think, especially once you count shipping, I certainly think it has a better chance of holding its value compared to the retail pledge, which I think will just be cheaper at retail. Moving on to Redwood. Redwood, 990 backers, $94,000 raised. Redwood coming to you from Sit Down Games, who have done a ton of games that I really enjoy. A lot of clever, interesting puzzles from Magic Maze to Rush Out to Tiwanaku. A lot of fun little interesting games. Sit Down Games generally has a record, or I don't know, what do you call it? They have a something. They have a reputation, that's the word I'm looking for. They have a reputation for having very fun, cutesy, interesting concepts in their games that have worked in different ways. Sometimes they've worked for me, sometimes they have not. I'm looking at You Dive. Dive did not work for me quite as well. But this one over here, Redwood, is a game of trying to line up the perfect photograph. There's going to be a base game, an expansion, a deluxe edition, all these options over here on the Kickstarter page. But the basic core concept of the game is that you're trying to move your photographer around the board by guesstimating which movement tool you want to use, and then also guesstimating which shot you want to take, which angle lens you're going to be utilizing to capture that perfect shot. This one's going to run you $45 for the retail edition of the game effectively, and then all the way up to the Fox Pledge for the Kickstarter exclusive edition, and then up to $91 for the Beer Pledge, and then $137 for the Elk Pledge, giving you the full big box with everything all packaged in one with the expansion as well. So all the way up to $137 for the game. If you're getting the game with the basic $44 pledge for the retail edition, I'd probably just wait till retail. I think it's usually a better deal, and likely the case here as well, especially once you factor in shipping versus your friendly online local game store that is not charging shipping, so you want to factor that in. But once you're going to the higher pledge levels over there, you're starting to get some more exclusive content that's going to be harder. You're starting to get some upgraded content, both expansions, giant slipcase, and that's where it starts going into how popular will this game be. And that one's harder to tell. I played the game, I liked it, but it's definitely on the gimmicky side. It's coming to you from the designer of Cult Express, so they definitely have some designer testimonial, designer creds behind them over there. But also with 994 backers, this one is doing a decent job finding an audience without being an amazing job, and I don't know how well that will translate to the secondary market, as well as how well to this one will hold up, and what the price points they're able to get on the game are. So overall, I think that even though the higher level pledges are the way to go if you are interested in the game, I still am skeptical overall that any of these will really hold a value. I think they are expensive. I think there'll be an audience for this game, but not necessarily a large enough audience that it's easy to get your money back on this game, exclusivity and all. Moving on to Harrow County, the game of Gothic Conflict. 1,300 backers, $120,000 raised, 18 days to go. This is coming to you from Off the Page Games, not Sit Down Games, different company. Off the Page Games, coming to you from Off the Page Games, from Jay Cormier, the same publisher as Mind Management, which did an absolutely, Mind Management was absolutely incredible, but I will try not to spend all my time talking about Mind Management. Instead, we'll talk about Harrow County, a 1 versus 1 asymmetric game that very quickly turns into a 1 versus 1 asymmetric game with different characters that then turns into a 1 versus 1 versus 1 asymmetric game with new characters, and eventually, if you have the expansion, you'll have a 1 versus 1 versus 1 versus 1 asymmetric game, all 4 sides being different, no one really teaming up, everyone out for themselves, playing as different roles. This is to a degree, think of games like Root, but in a more abstract, quieter engine. A lot is going on in this game. It's going to level you up and iterate you across the experience, across 5 gameplays, although that may or may not change. I don't know how they're going to be incorporating the extra expansions, so I don't know their exact plans over there, but this is a very well-liked, very well-reviewed, if you look at testimonials across the board from people who've played this game, overall this is one that is really even well enjoyed by the people who got their hands on this one. It's going to run you $84, that's all Canadian, so let's switch to American over there. We have $62 for the retail edition, which again is just expensive for retail edition. I get games are going up, but it's just hard to tell someone $62 plus shipping for just a retail edition of the game. That's just a tough sell over there, although 58 backers are definitely going for that sell. Then for $94 you're getting the deluxe edition of the game. That's usually you have a little bit more leeway, a little bit more of a room to say it's going to cost X, Y, and Z because we're giving you those better components, that better quality. And then for $122 you get the Satchel Edition, which gives you an even more option. And then for $180 you get the Satchel Edition plus the hand side poster. So lots of options as far as how you get the game in different ways, all the way from the basic retail edition, which I don't recommend, to the Kickstarter edition, which I do recommend, to then going up to the Satchel plus Extras edition, which I recommend if you really, really want it, but I don't know if they'll hold their value. Speaking of which, in this game is basically about asymmetric sides. Not speaking of which, that's a wrong tangent, but this game is a game of asymmetric sides. You figure out how to navigate the board, either rescuing the townsfolk or burning down the villagers' houses. Every player vying for their own individual engine with their own different area control aspects you have to be mindful of as you manage the AI of the missing third player and try to kind of direct things well towards each other, helping yourself as you take turns kind of alternating who's doing what. But overall, as far as will it hold its value, this is one that I'm a little bit more on the fence about. This game is expensive. That's the biggest thing. It's a good game, and I think it'll find a good audience, but it also is expensive. But then again, I'm also reminded of Mind Management, that Mind Management was a game that I was very much skeptical when it was on Kickstarter, and I don't know if this is going to be, in what category this is going to be. I think this one is good, but I don't think it's Mind Management good, although that makes sense because Mind Management is one of my favorite games, and so I think this is a very solid game, but it's also expensive, which makes me very much in the uncertain category. Lots of cool things going on component-wise, lots of upgraded bits, the dice tower built into the box, little snakes that fit into the guys' heads, so there's a lot of reasons, metal tokens and all those things, depending on what pledge you go for, so there's lots of stuff over here that can definitely charge and add more to the price, but still curious to see how they've been doing as well as on their overall campaigns and all that stuff post-Kickstarter. Moving on, we have Archravels Magic Socks. We have 800 backers, $81,000 raised, 23 days left to go. This is giving you a whole bunch of expansion content to Archravels. If you like Archravels, but you've been waiting for more stuff for the game, this is definitely that. If you don't like Archravels, then you probably have not been waiting for more stuff for the game, so you probably don't need this game. And if you've never heard of Archravels, well, that's good. They have an all-in pledge for you as well, although I wouldn't recommend spending $200 on this game without having actually played it first, although that's up to you. This one definitely is a lighter experience. Archravels is a lighter experience of trying to take the efficient actions to gather your yarn and craft the things you need as you go through the experience. It is on the lighter side, but there's a whole bunch of expansions over here being offered in the campaign. We're going to have the Enchanted Theme Park over here. We're going to have the Cuddles, the Cryptids, the Dinos, mix and match different patterns in the game, different projectiles, patterns, item tokens, all those different things. But that's not it. There's also going to be additional expansions for the game. There's going to be the Awards Season expansion, giving you more things to compete over, as well as the Rivals, giving you more direct head-to-head cutthroat competition in the game. And there's a whole bunch of those, so that's basically what you have over here. Let me see if we can scroll down and find the actual options over here for the pledges, because you can go to the Backet page, but they had a thing over here. If we scroll, here we go. Here we go. For Build a Bundle, we have $25 to build whatever you want, $25 plus to get the base game, whatever you want. We have just the expansions for $45. We have just the theme packs for $45. We have all the new stuff for $90. And we have all the new stuff plus the base game for $130. And we have everything Archravels, all deluxeified for $200. Like I said already, there's a lot of stuff you can get over here. You could absolutely spend $200 on this game. This game can start off on the lighter side. The expansions definitely will give you some more content, both in variety as well as more competitiveness to it, but it still is at its core a lighter experience. Just understand that before you go ahead and jump into it, because again, if you like the game, great, get everything you want. If you don't like the game, $200 is a very big entry point to jump in on Archravels over on Backet over here. That's basically it. You can get Backet, check out your options, go through what you need, and that is Archravels. Moving on, we have Patriot, an immersive 1 to 6 player social deduction board game, 422 backers, $35,000 raised. This is another expensive one, but this one did manage to fund. This is one where the video is compelling. I highly recommend watching the video. It looks very solid. This looks like if you like any sort of resistance or any sort of hidden role game, this one does look like it's another one worth paying attention to, with a degree of the president. The president's being threatened, and you have bribes and blackmail. You have to figure out who's trying to save the president and who is trying to kill the president as you go through a series of events, trying to appease the blackmailer, trying to work together, trying to figure out what you need to do in this experience. It looks very, again, if you like games like like Resistance or One Night Ultimate Werewolf, any of those genres, but you want something with a little bit more oomph to it, Patriot does seem like it's giving you that experience. Highly recommend watching the video. It'll give you a good feel for whether this is something that you're interested in looking into more or not. The problem is it's going to run you $78 for the standard core game over there. It's going to run you $102 for the Deluxeified all-in, making this significantly more expensive than One Night Ultimate Werewolf or the Resistance, or One Night Ultimate Werewolf plus the Resistance, plus Quest, plus Coup, plus Cockroach Poker. Add them all together and you're still paying less than you were paying for Patriot, which is the big counter selling point over here. This is why the game, as good as it looks, is definitely doing well, but also is only doing well as opposed to really well. The price points on some of these games are making them harder and harder and price them out. As far as, speaking of which, as far as that, should you back or should you not? Will it hold its value? I think the price point of this one, I think it's going to be hard for this one to hold its value after the fact. I think there will be a limited audience for this game, but it is expensive. At the end of the day, it's expensive, and that makes it a harder sell when you're comparing it and weighing it up against a whole bunch of otherwise cheaper games. Then we have New Avernus by Publishing Goblins over on Backet, another Backet campaign. This one's currently at $26,000 raised, 490 backers, 25 days left to go. This is going to run you, let's see here, over here, it's going to run you basically $49 for the base game over here, $59 for the base game, or $69 for the New Avernus and the Oracle of Glass and Stone, that additional deck of cards over there. But this is a game where between 7 to 10 rounds, meteors slowly striking Earth, and you're all trying to go with your own little separate competitive puzzles as you try to optimize your score and race your friends to the finish before the meteors crash down and take everything out in New Avernus over here. That's basically what's going on. I don't have a good idea of how this game plays, only high level over here, but that's New Avernus over on Backet. Which lastly brings us to the Stifling Dark, a horror board game, 1,300 backers. We have $85,000 raised, 25 days to go. The Stifling Dark is giving you another one versus many experience with hidden movement in the genre, although this time around the roles are flipped, the roles are reversed, and you basically have the hidden person chasing down the non-hidden people instead of vice versa. So rather than tracking down Jack the Ripper as you want as the streets of London, you're basically trying to accomplish your own goals as somebody else stalks you in the night, facing off against different scenarios, against different baddies, all trying to go with their own little pattern as far as how they're going to hunt you down, while you manage your limited resources, and your resources absolutely are limited, trying to balance the fact that you need to run, but you also need to use your flashlight, and you're trying to choose what and when and how to recharge was when to use everything as you walk through the darkness feeling hunted in the game. When you eventually accomplish the first half of the game, you're going to go to the second half where you have different options, sometimes being options including to chase down and try to kill somebody, the person who's been hunting you, which could be fun, or you can just try to escape like any other normal human being. I think it's going to run you $50 for the base game over here, and $70 for the deluxe. As usual, if you're going for the base game, just wait for retail. This one does have enough of a following with 1,300 backers that you likely will see a retail option, but that's also where it's less likely to hold its value. Whereas the deluxe edition of the game is going to give you some upgraded, deluxeified, more stuff for the game. I still am a little skeptical on the value of that one. $70 plus $70 plus the shipping and all that stuff. It's not a bad price point, especially some of the things we're seeing today, but it still is pricey compared to, well, other things out there in general. So I'm a little bit nervous even on the value of that one. I think we'll do fine overall, but might be one that you take a small hit on. And that is overall everything we have today, which brings us to the picks of the week. Picks of the week, we have a few. As usual, we have a pick of the week for the game that I, well, personally think is most likely to hold its value, and then we also have a pick of the week for the one that is my personal, well, best interest pick of the week. As far as the one that's most likely to hold its value, I think it's an easy enough pick, working for GameFound and all. I still think it's an easy pick to say Tainted Grail is the one that is the most likely to hold its value from all the ones we covered today. Wicked Realms games in general do a phenomenal job holding the value in the second-hand market. If you are interested in any game here and you're wondering, like, should I, shouldn't I, will it, won't it, all that stuff, I think Tainted Grail Kings of Rune is your safest bet there. But then separately, if you're looking for the one that's my personal interest pick of the week, well, Tainted Grail is definitely a viable candidate for that as well, but I try to split up my picks, and so the second pick of the week is the one I'm most interested in, and for that I'm going to go with Draft and Write Records. I played this game, really enjoyed it. I tend to like roll and writes, and this is a very thinky, crunchy roll and write with a lot of pathways towards victory, so overall very intrigued by this one, so this is going to be my pick of the week along with, well, Tainted Grail, but Draft and Write Records as well. And that is everything. That's what we have for all the games, all the campaigns. Decent done time considering how much there was to cover, but that's also because a lot of them are just not funding, and I tend to go a little bit less in detail on those. So a lot of campaigns, but like 8 of them were just not funding. Pledges are getting expensive out there, and I think that's showing up in the way people are actually backing or not. In any case, so until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one. I ate at a Mary Poppins themed restaurant last week. They had super cauliflower cheese, but the lobster was atrocious.